I'm about to make a point that is more or less identical to a point I was making in a video I posted just a couple days ago. But in that video, I made the point through an analogy. And since I used an analogy, a lot of people in the comments seemed to struggle to grasp the point, or they did understand the point, but they decided to get super pedantic about all of the ways that the analogy wasn't a perfect one-to-one comparison for the thing I was actually talking about. They just got in the comments and they were like, if I can identify several ways that your analogy is not a perfect one-to-one comparison, then I can pretend not to understand the argument you are making, and I can dismiss it as invalid. So I'm going to ditch the analogy altogether this time and just be as straightforward and as clear as I possibly can be. If I did a forensic deep dive audit of your social media history for the last 5 to 10 years, if I looked at all of your posts and I were to find that you have never publicly expressed any kind of feeling one way or another about political violence before, if I were to find that you've never actually said that you're disgusted and frustrated by the amount of unarmed black civilians that are routinely murdered by police officers on camera, if I were to find that you've never publicly expressed how bothered you are at how often police officers are able to get off scot-free for murdering unarmed black civilians with basically zero consequences, if you've never said anything like that, if I find out that you've never expressed any kind of sorrow or sympathy for the victims of school shootings, you've never publicly taken a meaningful stance for all of the school children who have been slaughtered over the years at school by gun violence, if I were to find out that you've never said anything publicly about the thousands upon thousands of Palestinian families that have been completely wiped off the face of the earth as a result of the genocide that is currently taking place in Gaza, if I were to find out that you've never spoken up in support of victims of sexual assault, if I were to find out that you've never publicly said anything about all of the unhoused people who regularly have their very few worldly possessions taken from them and destroyed, if I find out that you've never said anything about America's for-profit healthcare system and all of the lives that have been destroyed by that, if I look and I find out that you have been completely silent anytime a right-wing maniac attacks people on the left, if you had nothing to say about the Pulse nightclub shooting, if you had nothing to say when Melissa Hortman was murdered in her house with her husband and dog, if I do a comprehensive deep dive to find out the totality of all the things you have ever deemed worthy to take a meaningful public stance on, and I find out that this is the first time you have ever spoken out publicly against political violence, I have no choice but to arrive at the inescapable conclusion that you are not a serious person. Your outrage is hollow and empty. It is shockingly selective and overtly racist, and no one should give a damn about any of the shit you suddenly have to say. Now let's take it a step further. Let's say I do a deep dive and I find out you have spoken out publicly before about political violence. Let's say I find out that when Breonna Taylor was murdered in her home, she was asleep and the police broke into her home and murdered her, and they had the wrong address. They were at the wrong house and they just killed an innocent person sleeping in bed, and then they were not indicted for murder. Let's say I look up your post history and I find out that when that happened, you were celebrating that the police were not indicted for murder, and you were saying things like, yeah, back the blue, justice, justice for a bunch of murderers who broke into a woman's home and murdered her in her sleep, and they were at the wrong fucking house. Let's say I just go a few weeks back in your post history and I find out that you were celebrating when the US Navy blew up a civilian ship off the coast of Venezuela, an entire boat full of people, and we have no idea who any of them were, and we never will now, and you were totally cool with the American military just executing those people without having any idea who they were, if they'd ever done anything wrong. It doesn't matter to you. You just think, way to go, boys, go get them. If I find out that you've been dropping laughing emojis under videos of men in masks ripping families apart and throwing parents into a van while their babies scream, for their parents, for their moms and dads, and you're saying, LOL, cry harder, libs, that's what they get for not filling out the paperwork in time. If I go through your post history and I find out that every single time an unarmed black civilian is murdered by a police officer, you're in the comments saying, well, why didn't they just comply? Or you're bringing up old charges that this person had from years earlier and saying, looks like they got what they deserved. If I go through your post history and I find out that anytime someone expresses sympathy with the Palestinian people who are currently being mass murdered by the IDF, you comment, well, that's what they get for doing 10-7. They shouldn't let Hamas use them as human shields. Don't start shit if you don't want shit under a video of a mother grieving her bullet-riddled toddler. If I go through your post history and I find out that after every single mass shooting in the last 20 years, you jumped on the internet to say thoughts and prayers, but let's be clear, this is a mental health issue, not a gun issue. Let's not politicize this. There's nothing we can do. Bans don't work. This is just something we're gonna have to unfortunately live with. Maybe for good measure, I dig up a post where you're calling the grieving parents of a dead teenager crisis actors and claiming that the shooting was a false flag operation from the Democrats to make Republicans and the gun lobby look bad. If I go through and I find a well-documented history of you consistently hand-waving away political violence or actively cheering for political violence, and I see that now, in this moment, you are trying to step forward and say that political violence is bad, no matter who it's happening to, and no one should be okay with it. The result of that analysis is you're a straight up evil fucking ghoul, a terrible person, a fiend, a villain of the highest order. I think I've made my point about as clear as I possibly can, so I'm gonna make one more point and then I'm gonna bounce. Charlie Kirk was an extreme far-right super bigot who was killed by an even more extreme, even further right, even more bigoted white man who believed that Charlie Kirk was soft. Those are the facts, and I think you all know pretty well that facts don't care about your feelings. I've been incredibly consistent over the years as to where I stand when it comes to political violence. If you are a full-grown adult and this is the first time in your life you have ever publicly said anything against political violence, you are embarrassingly late to the conversation. You need to take your uninformed, ignorant moral lectures and shove them all the way up your ass, humbly take a seat, shut your mouth, open your ears, and only speak when you've learned something new and you have something valuable and honest to say. Hey, thanks so much for watching that video. Hang with me for just 1 second. I just want to tell you about something that just happened. So YouTube just removed a video of mine for cyberbullying and harassment. That was the community guideline that they cited, that they said that I was in violation of. This is my first video I've ever had removed by YouTube. I hope it's not the start of a trend. It's the most recent video I uploaded to YouTube before this one. It was a video called Why I Refuse to Be Lectured About Charlie Kirk. And they gave me a timestamp of when the offense happened. And I went to the timestamp in the video and it was literally just a part of the video where I was just saying things that Charlie Kirk had said in his life. Like things that are in videos of his that are currently on YouTube right now and that have been on YouTube for years. Things that have been clipped and used in so many different YouTube videos over the years. Things that Charlie Kirk was allowed to say and was allowed to do like very well with. Like he was allowed to get millions of views while saying those things and make a lot of money while saying those things. And I just like said what he said and YouTube was like, hey, you can't say that. That's a crazy racist thing to say. You're not allowed to say that. So they deleted the video. And this keeps happening to me. This is a big problem lately. It happens all the time to me on TikTok, which is kind of my main platform, unfortunately. It's just where I have the largest audience. I have 1.6 million followers over there, and I don't have anywhere close to that many followers on any other platform. So I'm just sort of stuck there for better or worse. But TikTok keeps taking down my videos with increasing regularity, especially in the last like 6 months, and they keep banning me from going live, and it's always like misinformation or bullying or harassment or hate speech, and I'm never actually doing those things. It's just I'm saying things that the current regime doesn't want me to say. I just had a video taken down on Facebook, and what this all looks like is it looks like all of the major video platforms now, YouTube, Meta, TikTok, they're all kind of converging to clamp down on censorship for left-leaning progressive channels. They all seem to be converging to help the effort to whitewash the legacy of Charlie Kirk. They don't want anyone disparaging his memory in any way, and it just feels like, I mean, it's been a lot in the last week. In the last week since I've been covering this story, they've been hitting me a lot on all these different platforms. And anyway, I'm just saying all of this to say my Patreon is $1 a month. I made it that cheap because I have this dream where I can keep doing what I do, I can keep doing this work, and I can be 100% funded by the people in my audience, which means I don't have to do sponsorships, I don't have to do partnerships, I don't have to do ads in my videos. I can just be 100% accountable to the people in my audience. And so I just decided to make it super, super duper accessible. Patreon.com/AustinArcher. All of my content goes there early, often with bonus content. I do a lot of Patreon exclusive content as well. So you get everything that goes to this platform and all of my other platforms, but more. And you often get it early, and again, no censorship. None of my videos get community guidelines over there. They don't get taken down. So everything I am putting out stays there, and you can have access to it for just $1 a month, $10 for an entire year. You get a discount if you just buy the year. It's $10. $10 out of your bank account, an amount you're probably not even going to notice. Patreon.com/AustinArcher. It's linked in the description. I hope you'll consider checking it out and supporting me over there. Thank you.